talk about distance learning. Okay. Personally, as I'm speaking right now, I'm a student of Walden University in the US. Okay, I'm currently doing my PhD in management information systems. Yeah. So when we talk about distance learning, it's not my new normal, because I already knew that this was the way to go. I had my first degree in information technology. My second degree is a master's of software engineering, and I'm still in IT. So some of these trends, in terms of what we talk about emerging trends, we were able to look at what the world was actually going to be. So COVID is not, it's just coming in as a by the way, but the truth is that we were aware that at a particular point, this is the way things are going to go. And therefore, when the internet came in, all the studies that we have been carrying out, we have realized that every component, whether you are a lawyer, you become an e-lawyer. Whether you are an accountant, you become an e-accountant. Whether you're a pastor, you become an e-pastor. So there's no question about that. So the point I'm trying to say is that distance learning is just it's just a necessity. It's not a luxury. It's not an option. And for any country that is thinking that it's a country worth the name, or for any leadership that we think is worth the leadership, we just have to find ways of ensuring that digital literacy becomes an essential of the studies, like the studies our children are able to undertake. Universities are able to take technology serious. But I'm also happy that I have heard the government now talking about sciences, which is also a critical part of this direction. Of course, although I don't support completely putting the arts aside, because as you realize that when you have this technology, it's not just pressing the buttons. You still need a lot of artistic theory to understand. You need psychology. You need psychologists to tell you how people interact with these machines. You need to understand, the impact of using computers, social platforms, and things of that kind. So that can't entirely be left to scientists. And it actually means that we still need people of the arts to be able to make those studies of behavioral issues that surround technology.
Cool.
Yes.
As you talk about being not just an alternative, but what we need to do as a country, do you think Uganda as a country, are we prepared to move on with this new normal?
Yeah, the new normal here, as I've told you, even if we don't want to be prepared, we shall be prepared.
No, when I talk about preparation, I'm meaning when you're talking about long distance or e-learning.
Correct.
And we have places where not only just people lacking internet, but also the strength of the internet, maybe to access the reading materials, to access different sites, and doing research is quite very,
that's why I'm saying that whether we want to be prepared or we don't want to be prepared, we have reached a level where you are running from an enemy following you, and then you reach somewhere, you realize that the next point,
so we need
you're actually jumping. So now when you reach there, because of this fear, when you reach there and you realize that you can't jump the other side, the only thing you do is to turn around and face this enemy. You understand what I mean?
Yes,
so you have to pick all your energy. So the essence of saying that, we have reached a level whereby the government just has to think. So people have been talking about renewable energy. People have been talking about alternative ways of learning. People have been talking about electricity and all those things. I know that the government of Uganda has, of course, made substantial progress in that direction. But now this is the time we need to get devices that can be solar powered. You see, those are things we could not think, because with the priorities that we have and the challenges we have as a country, nobody would think in that direction, because we still have so many problems. But now when you have our children seated home right now, over 15 million, I think, in primary schools, and then all the universities, people are seated there. Why? Because you don't even know what to do.
Cool.
Yes.
We are streaming on 89 Smart FM Facebook page. You can follow us live, and you can also follow this discussion at Sir Grace Mwesigwa. You can also follow the discussion at Mwesigwa Grace Morgan Facebook page, Facebook name and Facebook accounts. So You can enjoy the discussion. You can give your contribution. You can even ask a question. I have the expert in the studio, and we are talking about long distance learning, the possibilities of this, the whole thing in this country, Uganda. And the expert is saying it's not just a new normal, but it's something that we need to adopt too, because the world is running at a terrible speed, and Uganda as a country, we don't need to lag behind and say, because of COVID, that's why we need to get there. Now, let's relate to what you're talking about, long distance learning, in relation to what is happening now.
Yes.
We have had the government learning materials, and of course, the president was suggesting to give out a radio set to each family, and also perhaps maybe to buy 2 television sets for each village, and say the lesson is going to be on. And now, if you're talking about long distance, and now we have villages where people are complaining that they cannot have a chance to access the reading material, even when the government is announcing that those materials are circulating at different levels. Can we say this long distance learning then can be a viable solution in this circumstance?
I think I would have 2 types of answers. One, I think we need to be systemic in a way that we need to think of all the factors that affect this learning and what can possibly be done. Like I've told you, you don't only need, for example, electricity in a place to be able to charge the phones, to be able to charge the electronic. You understand? There are alternative methods. And some of the situations we are going, it's not for the first time. Other developed countries were here where we are today. The only problem, sometimes we want to reinvent the wheel. And I find problems with that. Some of the challenges of electricity and alternative ways you could be able to approach to make sure that your gadgets function, you don't only need electricity. But the problem I can tell also is that we have a problem with, evidence-based decisions. We make decisions. When you ask somebody that you are complaining, how many people do not have electricity, they will just tell you, no, most of the villages do not. The question, how many villages are you talking about? You understand? So even if you find the leadership at local government level, you will ask them, how many children do you have, studying in your district? In how many villages? How dispersed are they? You see, if we have these statistics, then you start giving me evidence, or you start giving me data that I need to base on to make decisions. But when you make a blanket decision, then it means everybody jumps onto the wagon and says, oh, there is a problem. How much, to what extent is the problem you're talking about? I'll give you an example. When they closed the institutions of learning, right from primary, from primary to universities, it was just blanket that, oh, you see, this thing has come, people cannot maintain social distance. Now later, some of the arguments we have been making at university level has been that, yes, I would understand that a P1 child may be up to P7. That child might not manage to maintain the mask, might not manage to maintain social distancing because of their playful behaviors. Now, those are behavioral things, those are behavioral details that somebody needs to analyze. You understand? So I would understand if you told me that there is a problem for that primary child to go to school because there is a very high probability that they will remove the mask. Then when they start playing, they will even forget.
Okay, whose will do we need in the first place? Citizenry will or the government?
What do you mean in terms of the will?
Because now, like you've talked about,
yes,
people can also think about solar-powered gadgets.
Correct.
And we're also talking about people thinking about accessing electricity.
Yes.
And when you talk about electricity to somebody listening to us from down there in Amutumba, we say the government has to do what it takes.
No, that's why we are saying.
And when you say solar-powered gadgets, somebody will still tell you from Ruwuka, will say the government must maybe say exempt the taxes.
And correctly so. I'm not saying that I'm distancing the government from this. But what I am saying is that the government should have data about exactly what it needs to do. Let us not have blanket decisions that all this problem cannot. What are you talking about? Now, for example, I am an expert in distance learning. Recently, I was facilitating at in the the second annual conference of National Council for Higher Education, and I remember I was actually presenting and saying, if we are not careful, the way this COVID is coming, we are just going to remain there helpless. But the beauty of it was that I was actually telling them why the university where I teach will still be able to move on. But I think even when we're engaged in that discussion, still some of the things we are talking about, the platform, the analytics and all that, looked like skyrocket science. And we are here in Uganda. You understand what I mean?
True.
So, but the question is, so the point is that sometimes we are not in touch with the reality, and sometimes people who make decisions do not even have sufficient information to make those decisions, and sometimes they don't even know where to get that. So I'm not trying to to downplay our government, but there is a level of I think sometimes unseriousness from how we do things. And it's not just maybe leaders, but even ourselves. People are not aware about what they are doing. Even if you go in local governments in Uganda and you say this is Chairman LC5, he doesn't have statistics at fingertips of how he can be able to make his decisions over a number of parameters. So the point I'm saying here is that some things we need to have a full, for you to make a very systemic decision, you need to have an overall picture so that you know that once I press this button, this is the impact.
Cool.
Yeah.
The person who is making reference points tonight is none other than Mr. Evans Maganda Tabingwa, who heads the long distance department of Cavendish University and is also a minister from Butembe, the chiefdom, which actually is among the 11 chiefdoms that make up Owachawazinga Wabusoga. Now, Mr. Evans, let's talk about if you have to benchmark for Uganda, as you see a country, Uganda. Do you need to move out of Uganda and think about universities, say, in Europe or America, or we have our own universities that we can benchmark from? Because maybe it sounds not real to the government. You remember the government had even to pause, to stop the examination for one of the universities in this country, Uganda Christian University,
yes,
when
yes,
they were
yes.
more than ready
Yes.
to maybe to take up the challenge, maybe doing it for the first time, and the government said, this is not practical. I remember Mr. President saying, now how do you monitor exams when you're not physically there?
I'll tell you that that was a political decision. It was not an academic decision. And even if I was, if I was the president myself, I'll still make the same decision, because primarily, I think to him he was looking at maybe how many of the poor students, how many of the poor students will be affected. I don't think he was looking and saying, okay, for those who can manage, go ahead, because universities like Cavendish University, UCU, will still be able to operate. In fact, we were asking, why do you have to close our students? Because our students, all of them, they have, we give each student a tablet, we load the modules there, we have made them take it safe in a way that a student can even access the modules when internet is not on. And he can only be able to make submissions when internet comes on. So it means that it was unfair to go and tell a student who has already exploited the future, to tell him that now you stop because there are other students who cannot afford that. You understand the unfair part of it? Because also now it makes the people who have been innovative to go ahead for you to slow them down. That's why you even see during when we did the virtual graduation. First of all, we were told, but now what is this you are talking about? And we told them, my friend, these virtual graduations are a reality somewhere. We don't have, because we were saying, but this has never happened. We said we don't have to do what has happened here before. The reason why we are becoming innovative is that now that this COVID has come, we are breaking, yes, we are breaking the silos. We are breaking these things that have looked like they are not realistic. And it was one of the most memorable graduation. Our chancellor, who is His Excellency Benjamin Mkapa, the former president of Tanzania, was seated right in Tanzania, and he was conferring degrees. Our mama, the speaker, at least that one managed to come at the physical venue. we had the governor, the chairperson of the governors in Kenya, in Kakamega County, making his speech from Kakamega County. So you can see, and then we had just a small space in Munyonyo where we selected some few students and the degrees were awarded. But do you know how much money that was saved in that? Because for the chancellor to fly, he needs to fly with a special, chartered plane to come, or maybe come with Tanzania Airlines. How many dollars are those? And he needs to come with his assistants. The governor in Kenya would make, actually, if it was that it was a physical graduation, a contact one, possibly it would have not, because either the budget has not been signed somewhere or he does not have enough resources, but he managed to do all that. And that's why now I'm telling you that distance learning becoming a viability is that even the cost of getting people who are experts wherever they are to facilitate teaching becomes normal. Does this mean education system of Uganda seem to be static, and maybe the planners seem to be using the archaic methods to improve on what we're doing? Okay, I would say yes and no. Okay, no, in the sense that bearing the environment that we are in, there are certain things that we might not jump on very fast. But yes, in a sense that we cannot keep on doing the same things. You understand? In the name of saying that, this is how the environment is. Do you want to take on the theory or the belief that a government operates like a lion? You need to take some space to turn and reflect on what you're supposed to do. Yeah, and that must happen anywhere where development has come. Bureaucracy. There must be people who must actually think out of the box. There must be people who must start doing, actually there must be people who should start breaking the rules. That's the unfortunate part. That you must reach a certain level and start breaking the rules and boundaries. Because if you don't break those boundaries, and then there are some people who are always like, this is how things should work. Because now, I'll give you an example, because I study online. One of the advantages that I have gotten out of this, there is no experience of learning that I have had compared to my online studying experience. Why? Because from the time when I started my bachelor's, yes, I had very good lecturers who would be able to tell me the principles of programming. They would be able to tell me a number of theories. But now you see, with online learning, I'm able to borrow even class where they just give you videos about certain sessions of things that a lecturer will not be able to tell you on the blackboard here. You understand? And there is a way certain things can be framed in that they challenge your mind. I was studying a topic where they were trying to compare in decision making, and they were trying to say the conflict between political decisions and technical decisions. Now, what they did, they gave us a video of the guys who went to the moon. What do they call them? The astronauts. And they started showing us how the debate was going in between the government and then the technical people who are going to. And in the process, they started showing how the technical decisions were affected that project. You understand what I mean? So so that a little bit gave me a detailed analysis. Yes. Another example is that I peer review content that our students study, but I can tell you that I am as knowledgeable as the videos that I've watched over time. You're as knowledgeable as the videos that you've watched over time. Correct. That sounds so amazing. And if I was speaking to someone from Germany, maybe Canada, I would find space to forgive that person. But now, born in Uganda, raised in Uganda, with brilliant ideas, we have just introduced the new curriculum for lower secondary. Yes. We have seen our brothers and sisters going to fight for space in Kampala in terms of accommodation, food, and many others. Yes. Why not have Ugandans of your caliber to sit down and do something? Write maybe documents that you can recommend to this government, or perhaps they're documented but the government has just taken a deaf ear to implement. That's a very brilliant idea, and I think on very many debates, I belong on very many social platforms here in Busoga, for example, and I've been seeing people debating about the city, where people now are assuming. You see, sometimes we assume that we understand everything, but everything that comes, the advanced countries take time to research. For example, now in Busoga, as we are having this new city, people should be carrying out research how a new city is formed, the opportunities. Those are things people should be sensitive for everybody to be ready of the opportunities.
For us, we are here identifying the lacuna in
exactly.
the
We're talking about this because now we have, for example, our children who don't have jobs. You are having a city which is going to come in with quite a number of opportunities. Instead of sensitizing the young people to know that in 10 or 20 years, this is how Ginger is going to look like. You are busy talking who is going to be a leader, and when these leaders come in, they also don't even know much about how to manage a city and the opportunities that come with it. You understand what I mean? So we need to take time, carry out research, be able to benchmark. Some of the things we are doing, we are not doing them for the first time. We are behind some economies, like 300 years behind certain economies.
There's no doubt.
There's no doubt about that. Where we are, they were there before. We have countries around us which are doing far much better, and they're doing very simple things that are. But I think there's a way we always get into the offices, and then you find that people are not, like thinking, how are we moving from here? You understand what I mean? So when you start having those type of mentalities, you just, actually, by the way, you don't even realize that there's a problem with you, because first of all, your mind is not challenged. And that's why now I'm saying that maybe now when we talk about things like distance learning, instead of lecturer Maganda, who has just been studying in Kampala and maybe has gotten some few ideas and experience, and then he comes and teaches you the things, you can be able to collaborate with other institutions which are already at advanced level. They show you how they are doing things.
Well, okay. For your submission, you're talking about the reluctance of some officials.
Yes.
Has slowed down our speed of progress in regard to the education sector of Uganda. That's why we don't need to delay to play the adverts now, and we take just a break of 2 minutes,
okay.
And after we shall continue the discussion. And to those who are following us, you can see a number of comments. Please continue commenting, and if you have questions, please write your question with the hashtag reference point. And we are talking about the long distance learning. In the studios, I have Mr. Evans Maganda, Tabingwa. Of course, Tabingwa, in most cases, they always come from Luuka, and they'll find space where to settle after, because you'll see many of them in Jinja, Kampala. But if you're tracing the ancestral homes, will be Luuka. And after this commercial break, we shall be talking about how we can, of course, make this a reality in Uganda. But also, do not forget that you'll have a chance to call in and, of course, have a chance to talk to Mr. Evans for a comment, and you'll be responding.